Now that the president has signed the debt ceiling bill into law, it is becoming clear just what's in it. And today, Democrats and Republicans are defending how they voted on the bill. Now, the bill is a far cry from the $843 billion in non-defense discretionary spending initially proposed in the president's 2024 budget. This deal caps spending at $704 billion, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Now, here's a reminder. In exchange for raising the debt ceiling until 2025, the new law keeps domestic spending flat while allowing for increases in defense spending. The legislation also widens the work requirement age for adults receiving SNAP benefits or food stamps to 54 years old. But it exempts veterans, and for the first time ever, unhoused people are now eligible to receive SNAP benefits. The bill also claws back unspent COVID funds and scales back expanded funding for the IRS. That's a lot. And, by the way, in case you didn't know, the pause on student loan payments will be lifted in August. Yes, that is in the bill. To be clear, this is a major concern and, frankly, a financial game changer for many, many Americans. Well, this morning on MSNBC, the lead White House negotiator, Shalonda Young, the OMB director, explained how this deal was designed to prevent a similar budget showdown later this year.
My colleagues, part of the deal here was to make sure we gave top lines to the spending panels to make sure that they could succeed. Because we don't want to be back here October 1st having conversations about a shutdown. So the numbers we came up with, while not what we would have written by ourselves, allows the appropriations process, the spending process, to have a place to start from and reach success.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, facing opposition from members of his caucus for needing help from Democrats to pass the bill, tried to justify the negotiations to the audience of Fox News.
The thing you want to look at is which Democrats voted against this. AOC, Bernie Sanders, the progressives. Why did they vote against it? Because we did get work requirements in welfare reform.
The full impact of this legislation and its effects on our fiscal future have yet to be fully realized. And the nitty-gritty, well, it is complex, but lucky for you all, I have someone here to make it so much clearer. The Deputy Director of the National Economic Council, Bharat Ramamurti, joins me now. Bharat, it's good to see you. Hopefully you can just explain a couple things for the people. First off, how does this legislation help us avoid an economic showdown over the budget later this year?
Well, basically, every year you end up having a negotiation with Congress about the budget, the next fiscal year budget. And essentially what you had here in the context of this conversation over the last few months was exactly that. The fiscal year ends at the end of September. We're going to need to work with Congress, including the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, to put together a budget for fiscal year 24, which is upcoming. And that's what you had here. And you had a deal that, at the end of the day, reflected the realities of a divided government, but that protected really key priorities of the president and key pieces of legislation that he passed in his first 2 years in office.
So there will not be a dramatic budget negotiation then happening later on this year?
That's right. This bill sets the top line. In other words, it says exactly how much you can spend on non-defense issues and on defense topics. Within that, of course, there's going to be conversations about how much goes to this specific program or that specific program. That happens every year. But a key part of this, which is at a high level, how much are you going to spend, that's been resolved by this bill.
Okay, because there's a key part of this bill that requires Congress to pass 12 appropriation bills. And if they don't do that, then something gets cut.
Exactly. So Congress has to pass 12 different appropriations bills, as you noted. If they don't, what ends up happening is that there's an across-the-board 1% cut to all spending programs relative to last year. So it's not in anybody's interest, really, to make sure to have that happen. And so part of including that in the bill was to create an appropriate incentive for our appropriators in Congress to work together, work past their disagreements, and put in place those 12 appropriations bills so we have a well-funded government going into next year.
So the president noted that he still plans to pursue increases to taxes on the wealthiest Americans in this country. That's what his budget proposal, his 2024 proposal that he put out about the budget, that's what he detailed. Are Republicans going to play ball on that? How is he going to get that done?
Well, he's going to keep pushing for it. And in these conversations that happened over the past few months, there were at times at least some amount of openness to the idea of higher taxes on certain types of very wealthy individuals or very large corporations. He is dedicated to getting these into law one way or another. He's going to keep pushing for it over the next 2 years while he's in his first term. And look, these are really common sense things. One example, a minimum tax on billionaires. Many billionaires pay less in terms of a tax rate than your typical firefighter or typical nurse. I think on average they're paying 8% of their income. Most folks out there are probably paying more than 8% on of their income on taxes. So putting in place a minimum tax on billionaires brings in hundreds of billions of dollars that we can use for a more affordable child care or paid leave programs or expanding Pell Grants, really important priorities for this president.
But is this something that Republicans have noted that they are willing to support?
Not yet, but we're going to keep working on it. I mean, what we've seen over the past a couple months even is that, remember, the opening bid that the Republicans had in this negotiation was a 22% cut to all discretionary federal programs. And what they ended up with was a 0% cut. So we're able to move the party over time. I think the public is on our side. If you look at polling on the billionaire tax, for example, something like 75 or 80% of the public supports it.
I mean, even Warren Buffett says that he pays more than his secretary, and he shouldn't have to. Shout out to a good Nebraskan, Warren Buffett. I want to ask you about the student loan piece of this. One, how did that make it into this bill?
Well, again, it's important to look at where the Republicans started. When they passed their bill through the House, it ended the pause immediately on federal student loan payments, but it also rescinded the entirety of the debt relief program that the president announced last August. It would have canceled the entire income-based repayment program that the president is putting in place that's going to end up cutting payments for your typical borrower by hundreds of dollars a year. All of that would have been gone. The president was able to fight that off. He drew a line in the sand that he was going to protect his student debt relief program. He was going to protect his income-based repayment program. And so what we ended up having is a legislated end to the pause at the end of August, which, for better or for worse, is exactly what the president had announced last winter when the Supreme Court decided to review his debt relief program. He announced then that the pause would come to an end at the end of August. This just puts it into the law.
Yes, but it's my understanding that the bill also says that no Secretary of State going forward, no Secretary of State, no Secretary of Education going forward, not just a Biden administration, but any future administration, could pause student loan debt repayments without the express consent of Congress. That seems like you're boxing not just this administration, but future administrations into a corner.
Well, I would describe it slightly differently. So it says that this current pause, which is in place now, can't be extended. But if there was another reason to have a pause, if there was another emergency, God forbid, or another reason under the law where there was a valid reason to extend the pause, this bill does nothing to prevent the Secretary of Education from doing that. So really, it's a very narrow provision that, in effect, codifies what the president said was going to happen last winter.
Are you all concerned about the backlash? Because, I mean, look, bro, I'm going to just say, I used to work at the White House, okay? And I worked at the White House when there were people who were outside of the White House daily, many of them young people, the majority of them, protesting, asking the administration to do something about student loan debt. I have never seen young people, like people that I know who are not engaged, involved in politics. The student loan debt issue is the thing that I've heard most from these folks. And I'm looking at it like, I don't know if this is good politics. Are you all concerned?
Well, we're concerned about a couple of things. Number one, we want to make sure that we're able to do our debt relief program. Remember, 40 million borrowers, we're going to get up to $20,000 in debt relief. It's going to be a life-changing thing. Half of those borrowers were going to have their debts completely wiped out because of that proposal. We fought that hard. It's now in front of the Supreme Court. Our Department of Justice made a very strong argument, in our view, as to why that's legal. We should be hearing from the court in the next couple of weeks. Our hope is that the court finds it legal. We're able to provide that relief to people before they ever have to start making their payments again. And look, we are very committed, whether it's through that or through the income-based repayment program, which I don't want people to underestimate how important this program is.
Oh, I've got a whole thing on it later in the show because it is important and it is game-changing.
It is. I think people are, because of the focus on the one-time debt relief that was announced last August, this is a really important program where somebody who is making, typical middle-class salary is going to see their average monthly payment drop a substantial amount. I think the typical borrower is going to save something like $1,200 a year on their payments. People who have smaller balances, people who happen to be lower income could be making $0 monthly payments, and after doing that for a certain period of time would see the remainder of their balance totally wiped out. So it's a really important reform.
It is significant. We will wait to see what the Supreme Court says. I wish I could tell you I was optimistic. Bharat Ramamurti, thank you very, very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on set.